Hi, let's talk about running collections. So why run a collection? We saw earlier how you can use scripts and tests to mirror your workflow. Doing this, you can replicate specific user experiences and test for them. If you're using an external data file, you can also loop through external data and test for hundreds of scenarios instead of just the ones that you have hard-coded in your Postman collection. So there's three ways to run a collection. You can run a collection in the Postman app, you can run a collection from the command line, and you can run collections from the cloud. Let's take a look at how to run your collections in the Postman app using the collection runner. Let's go ahead and switch over to the Postman app. So in the Postman app, you see that you have a bunch of collections in the sidebar here. Let's go ahead and see how we can run this collection called Postman Echo. Click on this arrow next to the collection name and click Run to open up a separate window called the collection runner. You can run an entire collection or you can run a folder. If you want, you can select a corresponding environment. You can go ahead and set how many iterations you want the collection to run for. Inject a delay in milliseconds in between each request within the collection. You can log responses. And then in a little bit, we'll take a look at how to upload a data file so you can cycle through information in an external data file. The default setting is that variables will not persist any changes. So through all the ways that you can run a collection, if you mutate a variable, then that will not persist unless you have this checkbox clicked. I'm going to go ahead and leave it unclicked and then run this collection. So now in the collection runner, you can see all of your requests being sent. If you have tests, you'll see the output of those tests. In this case, there's a number of collections in this request, a number of requests in this collection, and you can see that 86 of my tests have passed and 4 have failed. If I want to drill down into the failures, I can go ahead and filter by failures and see exactly what is going on with this specific request, what was sent, what was the response body, and so forth. From here, if I wanted to share this collection run, if I'm on a team workspace, other team members will be able to see the history of collection runs. And in fact, if I scooch back here and click back to collection runner, you can see the history of recent collection runs. But if I want to see what the results were, I can go ahead and click on that collection run and view it in more detail here. If I'm not on a team workspace, I can go ahead and export the results as a JSON file, and that'll show the results of a collection run, and you can share it with somebody else by emailing it to them. Inside the collection runner, if somebody has emailed me, somebody outside of my organization has emailed me a collection run file, I can go ahead and import that test run right here with this orange button. So that's how you run a collection using the collection runner. I'm going to go ahead and close the collection runner, and I'll show you how to use the collection runner to cycle through data in a data file. So I have this other sample collection here called Working with Data Files, Ramen. It contains a single request, and in the request I'm accessing an unresolved variable called city and an unresolved variable called ramen. So inside my CSV or JSON file that I'll run alongside this collection, I'll have a header called city or a property name called city and a property name called ramen. So I'm going to go ahead and click the arrow next to my collection name, click Run to open that collection runner window once again. I have that collection that I want to run highlighted. I don't need to use an environment in this case, and I'm going to go ahead and upload a data file. So under Data, I'm going to go ahead and select a file. I'm going to select CSV. In this case, the collection runner accepts CSV or JSON files. I'm going to click Open. And if I've uploaded my data file correctly, if it's been formatted correctly, I can hit Preview and see what that looks like. So in this case, my CSV file has two data elements, city and ramen, and every row is a separate data record that has a city and the number of ramen searches in that city. So it looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and click Run. And same as before, we saw the collection had run requests, but this is cycling through every single row of that data. You can see what is being sent in that request by drilling down into each request and inspecting it. And I had a couple tests written so you can see what the results of those tests are. In this case, all 105 of my tests pass and 0 failed. So that's how you run collections in the collection runner. Let's go ahead and head back to the slides. So we looked at the collection runner, and you can see how you can test for hundreds of scenarios by using a data file. You can use a collection runner run for initializing a database, doing any kind of setup or teardown for testing. And by default, all the requests in your collection will run in sequential order. If you have additional logic in your script to branch and loop through other requests, then you can set a dynamic order for your collection run as well. The collection runner sends a request and stores the response. If you want to drill down, you can see that there's a little tooltip over the request to inspect the request and response details. And we also took a look at how you can loop through a data file. And if you're not on a team workspace, then you can export collection runs and email them to other team members. All right, let's take a look at how you can run your collections in the cloud. Let's head over to the Postman app. So when we're talking about running collections in the cloud, we're talking about Postman monitors. Essentially asking Postman to schedule a certain collection run to run at a certain amount of time, certain frequency on the Postman servers. So let's take a look at this collection we have called DNS Checker. It includes 14 requests, and let's go ahead and create a monitor. Click on the arrow next to the collection name, tab over to the Monitors tab. In this case, I already have a monitor set up, but I'm going to go ahead and create a new one. So click Add Monitor. I'm going to say Second DNS Monitor, give it a name. I don't need an environment in this case, and I can go ahead and schedule it as often as every 5 minutes. If I have customers in multiple regions, I can go ahead and select multiple regions for the monitor to run in. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and stick with US East. For enterprise customers, if they have the need to whitelist traffic coming from a certain IP, there is the ability to set a dedicated IP for your monitor. And then there's some additional preferences about if a test fails, then how am I receiving those notifications, either via email or through one of our inbuilt integrations. In this case, I already have a monitor running, so I'm not going to go ahead and create a new one. I'm going to actually click through and see what the previous one looked like. So click on the monitor. And you can see that I'm in a browser right now. So this is, I'm signed into my Postman account in Chrome, and I see this dashboard of my historic collection runs. So I had previously set up this monitor for checking DNS, and it looks like I was running it about every hour, and I can see the response time. And if I want to drill down on a specific collection run, I can click on it, and what I see below is very similar to what we saw in the collection runner. You see all the requests that have been sent and any tests. If I had any failures, I can go ahead and filter by those failures here on the left. Something to call out that's kind of interesting is if you have a monitor that's failing, or rather if you have tests in a monitor that are failing and you're trying to debug, you can actually click over to the console and use it the same way you would the Postman console or Chrome DevTools and do some debugging in this console here. If you have the monitor running in multiple regions, you can go ahead and parse a little bit finer. If you wanted to parse down by certain specific requests, then you can go ahead and do that here as well. So that is how you can run a collection in the cloud on Postman servers. Let's go ahead and head back to the slides. Okay, so we talked about automating your collection runs by scheduling them to run in the Postman cloud with a Postman monitor. We looked at what the analytics looked like in the web view of the dashboard. And we talked about setting up notifications. So you have email notifications that you can send, but there's also other pre-built integrations. So if you're using Slack or you're using PagerDuty for alerting and acknowledgements, then you can hook up the results of the monitor run to some of the other tools that you use right now for monitoring. All right, and the last way to run collections is from the command line with Newman. So Newman is Postman's open source command line tool. You can use it to run your collections locally. or set it up to run Newman in your CI environment. So a lot of people are using JSON files, or rather a collection in JSON format to run Newman from their command line, but probably the best way to do it is to get the latest version using the Postman API. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. And then there's multiple options to configure a collection run. So if you use certain tools, say you want to essentially write a file to your local file system, if you want to export it as JSON, rather to write it to your local file system as JSON or HTML, you can do that. So there's a lot of custom reporters so that you're not just getting it in a single flavor of output. All right, so in order to talk about Newman properly, we also have to talk about the Postman API. The Postman API is how you can access all of your Postman data, so your collections, environments, Macs, monitors, and even some user information. It does require an API key that you can get through the integrations dashboard. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so in the Postman app, we saw how to run a collection. Let's take a look at Postman Echo. Previously, we hit this blue run button to run it in the collection runner. But if I want to go ahead and run it from the command line, I can either click this ellipsis and export a JSON file and run it locally that way. So I can go ahead and export it. I think I have one already exported. So if I switch over to my terminal, let's go ahead and I already have Newman. Hold on. I already have Newman installed on my machine. So I'm going to go ahead and use Newman run. And I have Postman Echo already in this existing, or in this current directory rather. If I click enter, Newman is running this collection from my command line, and I can see all the requests that are running, the tests that are running, and if they're passing or failing. So that is what it looks like when you're running a JSON file. But what if somebody makes changes to the collection? Do you have to sit there and export the new updated file all over again? Well, you could do that, or you can use the Postman API to get the latest version. So I have the Postman API collection here in Postman app, and if I go ahead and open the collections folder, I can look at getting all my collections. This one I believe requires an API key, so I'm going to go ahead and I think I already have an environment. So if you go ahead and take a look at your API key in the quick look, I already have an environment selected that has my Postman API key with the correct value. And so if I go ahead and hover over Postman API key, I can see that Postman is reading in the correct value from my selected environment. So I'm going to go ahead and hit send. And this is it returns an array of all my collections. And if I want to go ahead and find Echo, I can see there's the metadata around Postman Echo collection. I'm going to go ahead and copy the UID here to my clipboard. And then I'm going to open up a new request to get a single collection. So this one requires the collection UID. I'm going to go ahead and paste it directly into the URL bar. And previously we had authorization, we included our API key with a header, but you can also include it as a query string parameter with API key equals, and then we'll go ahead and copy this value and paste it directly into this URL bar. So this entire URL here is how we can use Newman to get the latest version of this collection, of the Postman Echo collection. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this to my clipboard and then head back over to my terminal. And now when I hit Newman run, previously I had JSON file stored locally, I can go ahead and paste this entire URL to get that latest version of the Postman Echo collection. Hit enter. And once again, same way, we see the collection running with all the requests in it and all the tests and all the results of the tests. And it's the exact same thing, except when you get the latest version, you're getting the latest version. And so you don't have to worry if somebody's made changes and updated the collection since the last time you exported that JSON file. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back over to the slides. All right, so we talked about the Postman API. It's the ability for you to do CRUD activities with your Postman data. You can create, read, update, and delete stuff in your collections, environments, mocks, and monitors. We talked about the best way to get the latest version of a Postman collection. And in summary, there are 3 ways to run a collection. You can run a collection in the Postman app with the collection runner, from the command line with Newman, or in the cloud with the Postman Monitor. And the best way to access your Postman data in real time is to use the Postman API.